Hello, hello, lovely people.
Hey, hey, hey.
Welcome to the devrelshow. It's episode, I think, 44, if I'm not wrong. Still, always happy to be here. Always excited to do that show. That's a fun time. And today's no different. I have an amazing guest with me, Victor. How is life?
Life is always good. Otherwise, what's the point of life?
I, I think it is. I think it is. Thanks for doing that. Victor was really patient with me because many months ago we scheduled an episode for last year, and I started to travel again, and I was like, hey, man, we need to reschedule that, and it was supposed to be last week, and I got the flu, and life were just in the way of our episode, but finally it's happening.
I do the same, just to be clear to others. If it's something not happening this week, then I honestly don't know. Kind of like if you schedule anything a month in advance or more, I have no idea what state I will be in. Where will I be? And all that stuff.
I used to like that because our schedule fill up quite quickly. So like if I don't put something in the calendar, it may never happen. And but I learned the hard way that like for that show at least, it's like for the first 2 years, I was planning those like 12 months in advance, and I was like, it just doesn't make sense to do that. I don't know what I was thinking. So I
To
just
be
learned.
honest, when you sent me that first invite, which was months and months in advance, I said, yeah. But in my head, kind of like, who knows?
Exactly. Exactly. So, yeah. So for this year Devrel show, I'm planning maximum month in advance with the guests. It just make more sense like that. And even that, as I said, I was sick last week, so you still never know. So again, thanks for that. So first question for you, for people that do not know you, who are you?
I'm Victor. So I'm a person who likes to change what I like to change what I'm doing. Like I'm like a kid with a toy, kind of like you give me a toy and then I'm very interested, and then next moment, I don't want to play with this. Give me another one, right? So I changed roles in my career. I was everything from from pure coder to manager, director, all that stuff. And now I landed officially, at least, kind of DevRel. That gives me most freedom because it's almost undefinable role. Kind of like nobody knows what DevRel is. Kind of, I don't know. You probably have DevRel guests, and I bet that all of them give you a different explanation what they do. Right? I don't know.
That
I
is
do
true.
something.
There's a common thread though, but this is one of the things I like and I do not like about the role is that, as I often say, like if you hire a developer or an engineer, like the role is clear. What's going to be different? Like which project you're going to work on, maybe which like best practices the company follow, which programming language, but you're creating a software developer relation. It depends who you talk to, it depends on the company, it depends on your vision of things. Like I have a really clear vision about the role and what I want the role to be and what I think the role should be, but depending on who you talk to, as you said, it can be really different.
So I have a slightly different approach, and that's a. Let me start. Let me say from the start. What I'm going to say is from the very privileged position, right? I'm a privileged person, so kind of I have requirements. Kind of like I want to be in the open source. I want to help people. And that help can be, hey, talk to me, kind of that might or might not be related even to what we are doing in a company where I am. So open source help, community, things like that. I want to be I'm a software engineer at heart. I want to be writing code, but I don't want to be limited by deadlines of some project and so on and so forth. I have a bunch of unreasonable requests. And then a company would say no or yes, right?
Yeah.
And so it's not that companies giving me requests. This is what I do. I don't even know what to do, kind of like, and you will not know what to do. But that somehow works. And if you say yes, kind of like, thank you, kind of like, let's do this. And then companies sometimes say yes. And it needs to be a company behind the project that I really admire, because I don't like, I don't tell people what I don't believe is true. So it must be additional requirement, kind of, oh, this is a company behind open source project that I really, really, really like and I use and all that stuff. And then at the end of all that process, if the company says yes, it's kind of, okay, how do you want to call that role? I don't care. I honestly don't care. If you need me to have a title, put whatever title you want, and then kind of, I don't know, you cannot put you in a software engineer because, yeah, you write code, but you don't meet the deadlines, and I cannot put you in marketing because you don't say what we want you to say. And how about DevRel? Okay, kind of, whatever you say, kind of like, I couldn't care less.
I like that. There's so many things I want to say about everything you said. So, yes, there's a privilege part. Definitely, I agree with that. I wish my job had less deadlines, which rarely happen in my life, because that when you don't have that imposed deadline, because like most of the time they're not real deadlines, they're just like someone decided that like this is the day we should do, or sometimes someone decided that this is the metrics that you need to hit right now, and sometimes it goes in a way of like trying to do something else that could be maybe more impactful. So I love that for you, that you have that opportunity. With that said, though, I really believe of what you said at first. The fact that like I think to be successful, especially when you have the title developer advocate, you need to be excited and passionate about your product, because there's so much that you can fake. There's so little that you can fake about that. Like, yeah, you can try to inspire the developer to use your product, but like if you don't believe in it, or if you don't like it, I don't think you can be successful, or at least not in the long term in that role.
So the way I see it, and this is, I don't know how to call it in terms of roles names, so don't hang up on me being DevRel. I don't know whether I'm DevRel. So, but a company needs many things, right? A company needs developers that will develop something, right? Managers that will manage something. The company needs marketing that will market something, right? And I don't feel being any of those. What I feel is that I establish certain level of trust. People trust me. And I'm never going to break that trust no matter what. No matter what. Kind of like, I will quit the company before I say something I don't believe in. And if I say something I don't believe in, truly, honestly, I'm breaking the trust. So the question in my head is kind of like, do you need a person in your company that brings that trust? But knowing that that person is not necessarily do what you want that person to do, right? Because there is a conflict, like, and we need marketing, just to be 100% clear and sure. But marketing very often will say, oh, we need this and this. This is our corporate message and stuff like that. And I can say, yeah, kind of like that makes perfect sense. Perfect sense. And I'm not going to say it. Right? I cannot say it because I'm not fully behind it. I'm fully behind that message that we need as a company to send that message. But that does not necessarily mean that we're fully behind, that I'm fully behind that specific thing if I wouldn't be working here.
Yeah.
That's not confusing, I know.
No, actually, maybe it is for some other people, but it is not for me, because this is why, if I want to be honest, sometimes I lost job or I left jobs exactly for what you said. I thought it was just me being stubborn, or me being opinionated about stuff, but like I agree with you, and if I would not agree, I would tell you. I'm not afraid to do that, but like I really agree with that. Again, I think that role, or whatever you call, whatever you do in your case, but like now your title is developer advocate, so let's focus on that. And this is what I do for a couple of years. So as a developer advocate, my job is part of my job is to build relationship with people, and to be able to build a true relationship with people, it starts with trust. So I have a no bullshit policy. Like I won't lie, I won't even embellish stuff to make it better. Like obviously, like I won't, like if a feature is not good, I won't like go at a conference and go on the stage and like yell to everyone like, "Hey, that feature is not good." But like, if you ask me, I'm going to be honest. If we have a discussion, I'm going to be honest about it. But I'm going to be able to tell you the reasons behind it. But like, I will never lie about things. And for some people, it's natural to work with someone like us. For some other people, it's kind of like a learning curve where, when I review blog article or stuff, I even say like, "Hey, is it really true?" And maybe it makes sense to say those things, as you said, from a traditional marketing point of view or from a sales point of view. But like me as a developer advocate, it doesn't make sense for me to say those kind of things. So I prefer to remove it. I prefer not to say it, but I need to be honest. It need to be like within that box of like, yeah, no, honesty. So I totally agree with that. I think again, I think you can survive a while by bullshitting or saying lie, but I don't think so. I think it's a short term like initiative. Like I don't think you can be successful medium to long term if you do that. And I believe in like trying to be successful in medium to long term. So again, I'm using a lot of word to say like I agree with what you said. Basically, it's so important. And the other thing that you said that resonate with me because it's always also how I define my role is my job is to, if I want to use one sentence to define my job is to help developers or slash engineers to be successful. I hope they can be successful with my product. Let's be honest. I mean, like I have a paycheck, but most of the time, but not most of the time, but often I'm going to help people on things that are absolutely unrelated. But what I've done with that, I help them being successful. They're a contact. Maybe at some point, if they need my product, they're going to think about the guy that was not an asshole and that helped them with something that they had issue with. So again, I agree with that too. I think we have the same philosophy and like how that kind of role should be.
Yeah, there was anecdotal situation. I mean, but through one. This was many years ago in a company I worked at, which I'm not going to name. And at one moment, a guy from sales came. Kind of, first of all, kind of Viktor, awesome. We have many customers that are our customers because they really like working with Viktor. Kind of like he helps them out. He's all this stuff. But if I ever hear any of you salespeople ever involving Viktor in any form or way before we make a deal, you will be in big trouble. Kind of like the moment the deal is done, kind of like send him over there, and that's fine because he will tell them not to use this feature because it's a horrible idea, and he will tell them to use this instead of that, and he will change everything we sold them, and they will be happy because they're engineers. They kind of like, they don't accept bullshit, and they want solutions that work. And sometimes those solutions are aligned, sometimes not aligned with what we have and stuff like that. And sometimes we're right, sometimes we're wrong, and all that stuff. Kind of, we want that. But if he, and we know that he will accept any invitation, kind of like, so kind of you call him and he comes, and that's fine. Kind of, so any of you call him ever again before the contract is signed, you're in trouble.
I mean, some people would see this as like something negative, but from my point of view, it's a testament to like doing your job well. But I know it may not align with what they had in mind, but like I just love that. And it's just as I said, it just makes sense. Like I remember, I will name the company. Like when my first job as a developer advocate was Microsoft, and people watch the show. You may have heard me talk about that example, but at that time, and it probably have changed because it's been 14 years ago. But Microsoft, the way they were managing goals is like you're red or you're green, and the only important things is that the goal that you set a year before finish green. It doesn't matter that you did something else nice that would have great return on investment and great impact. No, what you need to focus on is the goal that we define, and it's good. But at some point, I was forced to bring some like shitty apps on the Windows Apps Store, if you remember Windows Mobile Phone, just for the sake of getting the numbers. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do that because I don't think it makes sense. I don't think it's honest. I don't want to bring like to have developers encourage developer to build bad applications just for the sake of like having bigger numbers. And this is part of like the reason why I decided, it's one of the things where I decided to leave, because it was against my values. It was against like, hey, I want to do quality work. Just don't want to have like checkbox and like green light on like my goals. So just to say that, like, again, I understand where you're coming from with all of that, and I can test about what you said too, because I know Victor from my previous life, previous company, where I was mostly focusing on like cloud native and Kubernetes stuff, and we asked Victor like, "Hey, try your product, let us know how it goes," and we had the most formidable one-on-one with him, where it was like, this is good, this is bullshit, did you thought about that, and like with no filter. And I'm not saying that in a negative way. You had the right people though, with John, the CEO, myself, who were like, this is what we want, because everybody's like, oh, good product, but like, yes, no, maybe yes, there's a good product, but there's also things that are not perfect, so let us know. And he gave us what we asked for basically. So I'm still happy about like the discussion we had about that. Thanks again for doing that. But yeah, just to say that like, it's not just like, oh, I'm on the live stream and I'm saying great things about me. I'm like, no, he's living. What are you saying? So thinking of all that, like, okay, now you have the title developer advocate. You work at a company that I love, Upbound, great product if you're in the cloud native space. With that said, though, like all that discussion about you don't really care about the title, this is what you want to do, and give me a title because you need to give me a title. So what does that mean right now? Like, what is your role at Outbound? What does it look like? What are you basically doing?
Ooh.
Good question.
So depends really. I report directly to CEO. And that depends. I speak at a lot of conferences. I get invited to a lot of conferences, so I speak in a lot of conferences. I think about a lot of things. Sometimes those things that I'm thinking about end up part of what we are working on. So I'm kind of, developer advocate partly, but then partly product person, and partly I write a lot of code, so I'm partly engineer, right? I honestly cannot define what I do in a company. I honestly can't, right? I think of me as a person who is not in any specific team and under any specific deadline, and trying to figure out and do things that make sense at the moment. Which is, I don't know what this is. Kind of like, I honestly cannot define. Kind of like, so, dear Upbounders, if you're watching this, kind of, I'm sorry. I honestly don't know how to define it. I mean, I know what I'm doing, but that changes literally. Kind of, there are things that I'm doing this week that had nothing to do with things I was doing last week, and I honestly don't know what I will do next week.
Yeah, and that may sound weird, but from my point of view, I think it's great too, because I had jobs. I mean, if I want to be honest, most jobs I had, it was like, oh, this is what you need to do, or I had to define in advance what I need to do, how I'm going to measure stuff. This is the goal. This is how that's going to improve like the business, and this is how it's going to help us being successful, and a bunch of deadlines. And this is my job right now. But I had job where I had a little less that, let's call it, pressure, and it was more about as you said, like, do what makes sense for the company at the time right now. It was a little bit like that when I was at Construct Cube first, the previous company, where yes, I was hired as a developer advocate, and when we separate from the quote unquote incubator and we became our own company, my job was more like, hey, yes, continue to do live stream and speaking at events because that's kind of important for us, but also, is there anything else that can help the business? So I was helping a lot with like the open source effort that we're doing, and other like what needed to be done at the moment. And it may not seem that it makes sense for a business point of view, but I'm pretty sure it was even more helpful than when you are in a role where like, oh, this is like the 20 things you need to do right now because we decided this is the 20 things you need to do, and those are the deadlines. So having someone that like have a little more time about thinking and playing with stuff and like understanding what the business really need at the time right now, I think it makes sense. Um,
It does for me. Now,
I
if you
mean,
say if somebody would hire, that's why I started the very beginning with saying this from the privileged position. If somebody would in Upbound say, "Oh, we're a relatively small company to be about 60, 70 people, something like that." Anyways, if somebody would say, "Hey, we should hire 5 more people like you," I would say, "Please don't. Kind of like that would be chaos. Kind of like we don't need more of that. I just want to be the one." It's a privileged position.
Just one Victor is enough per company, I
Yeah,
guess.
I don't want more of me. No, please don't.
No, but it's also a privileged point of view for the company to being able to afford to have someone doing like that, because most business are like, no, we have all those things that we absolutely need to do to be successful, so we need someone that like going to do all
Yeah,
those things. So it's a great place for Outbound to be like, hey, we are in a place where we can afford to have someone who's going to do that. I think again in the medium long term it's beneficial, maybe not in the short term compared to, let's say, another role. And sorry if I'm offending you, but maybe not. But like on the medium long term, I think that's going to be more beneficial to have someone like you doing that. With that said, though, I don't think anybody can do that role. You need someone that like had a little bit of like leadership and like a different way of thinking and can basically manage themselves, but also that are not someone who's just like, oh yeah, I don't really have deadlines, so I'm not going to do fuck all. I'm like, no, you still need to bring values to the business, like to justify your salary in your prison. So
oh yeah,
you need a specific person to be able to do that.
yeah. I can tell you, we don't have infinite amount of money in Upbound. Kind of like, I even though I cannot define 100% what value I bring, but whatever the value is, there is something. Otherwise, we couldn't afford me.
Yeah.
There is no money to be thrown away, right?
No, nobody, especially right now with the economy and everything that is happening. It's it's a special moment. Outside of work, I would consider yourself like as a successful, let's call yourself a YouTuber or content creator, whatever you want to call yourself. You do a lot of like great video content. Do you want to just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, think of it like, like a hobby, right? Some people collect stickers, some people play soccer. I do. I'm not going to even say YouTube, but do publish some public material, right? Mostly YouTube recently. That's simply what I do as a hobby, and it's a lot of work. A lot of work. I just don't sleep much. And it's, I think that most people who publish something on YouTube, and I heard those complain, very often people would complain kind of, oh, why did you publish video on this subject this week? Kind of, why? I'm not making a list. I'm not choosing really what I'm going to publish. What you see on my YouTube channel is somehow always related to what I'm working on outside YouTube, right? Not necessarily in the same form. So if you hear me talking about, I don't know, like tracing, telemetry, right? It's not because I thought, hey, this week I should publish something about this, but there is something I worked on that week or the previous week related to telemetry, and then okay, so what can I publish here this week on YouTube that is somehow related? Not exactly what I was working, because very often I cannot or it's not ready for prime time. And that's also one of the reasons why a lot of things that I'm publishing last half a year, maybe almost a year, is related to AI. Many of people that watch me hate it, right? I got huge drop in views on channel since I started publishing AI. Oh, huge, massive. Simply because that's not my audience. Not that it's a bad idea to publish AI, but my audience tend to be more senior SRE type of people. And they're not into it, at least not that much, at least not yet. And kind of, okay, but why are you publishing AI? Because behind the scenes, that's what I'm working on. I'm not really trying to make content, trying to figure out what will bring me more views this week. That's not what I do. It's my hobby. I translate what I work on to a YouTube video. And if nobody watches, well, what can you do?
Yeah.
I'm still not going to change it, because if I would be taking it seriously, let me really think what people would watch, what people liked, chase the views, chase the likes, and all that stuff with the quality that I expect from it, it would need to be full time.
Yeah,
it's the amount of work as I'm doing it right now is tremendous. And if I would, on top of that, it not be related with what I'm working outside YouTube, then it would be full time. And I don't want to do that.
Yeah, and it becomes a job versus a hobby. Now you do this for fun, and if you had to change the mindset, it would be like, okay, now I need to do that for money, and it becomes a job. So yeah, no, I understand that, and people who do not create content do not understand how much work it is, depending on the type of content. If I want to be honest, like that live stream is not a lot of work for me, because the guest is doing most of the job. Like you're bringing the topics of discussion. I discuss with you. It's just about creating the thumbnail, scheduling the stuff, doing a little bit of back and forth by email. I don't prepare anything, usually because most of my guests are developer advocates. They don't even prepare their demo. It's just like things that they've done at another conference or internally, and they just like reuse it, which is fine. And I do not mind product pitches, so it's not a lot of work for anyone, but also do this for fun. I don't have that much views, and like depending on the guest, and I wish to have more views for the guest, because most guests can use that and go back at work and say like, oh, I was a
more money, because
exactly
increase my salary.
Exactly. But I mean, I do that for fun. I do that because I love meeting new people or talking with friends. I think even if developer relations is more popular now, it's still something that is not super well known yet, that would benefit to have like a live stream like that. But that would becomes probably a burden for me to try to, okay, how can I get more views, and how can I do more promotion, and should I pay ads, and should I upgrade this and that? And no, I don't want that. I want something laid back. As I tell all my guests before we start the show, think about that as like two friends talking about DevRel and their jobs and their things that they're passionate about. And yeah, sometimes it's really specific about the job, but like I remember, I forget the name of my guest is going to hate me as a friend, but like he has a huge Lego collection, and it was in the background, and we talked about it for like 20 minutes. And I was like, yeah, because there was the topic we wanted to talk about. Let's just have fun. But yeah, the goal is like, yeah, it's more like I do this for fun than as a job itself. With that said, though, I admire people like you kind of do a little bit of what they do at work or so in their personal time. Like I was doing that like many years ago when I started as a software developer. I was also coding like on my free time. And at some point I was like, I still love it. I still would like to do it, but I don't want to spend that much time in front of my computer. So I decided that like on my free time, I usually don't create content anymore outside of work. I don't code that much outside of work. But I like to do it. So I'm just curious, how do you reconciliate all that? I mean, you said this hobby, so I guess you answered my question. But
I just work all the time. I don't sleep much.
I heard you say that often. Do you want to share what does that mean? Like how long do you sleep at night?
I mean, today I went to bed around 6:30 in the morning. I woke up at 7, half an hour later, because my daughter was traveling. She's 15 to Canada. I had to deliver her to the airport. I came back and I was home around noon, and then I slept for 3 hours, and then my alarm. So that's in total 3 hours and 15 minutes so far. Then my alarm rang and kind of, okay, our video is being published at 3 o'clock, kind of like get up, do whatever needs to be done. And that was finished at 3:30. And then I went back to sleep for an hour and a half longer. And then another alarm rang up that I had a meeting at 5 o'clock in the morning. And then I had a stream at 6 and 7, something like that. And then now this. And I'm going to finally be able to open email and see what's going on today. And my life is I don't recommend it. Now, I enjoy all of that. Trust me, I'm a masochist. I don't know. There's something wrong with me. I honestly don't know what that is.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say like, oh, I sleep about 6 hours per night, which is not enough for me. But I was like, oh, it's fine. I was not expecting that. So I'm really happy I asked. But I agree with like the sentence, like maybe there was something wrong with me. Because wow, that's crazy.
That was not sincere. I said maybe if I said maybe that's something wrong with me, that was wrong. There is something wrong with me. There is no maybe in it. I don't recommend it. Don't do it.
God, no.
Kids, if you're watching this,
don't do this at home.
This is not a career path. Now, the beautiful thing, on the other hand, is that I do all that willingly. I don't have anybody deciding my hours. Nobody told me to do this. This is the rhythm that I choose because I utterly, completely love. I feel that I'm getting paid to do the things I love.
Yeah.
I don't do things that I get paid for. Yeah. I do things I like, that I want to do. And yes, that's probably like 60 hours. Nobody knows how many hours a week. Weekdays, weekends, but that's because I love it, right? Some people, most of the people on this planet, they do job because they have to, and they are dreaming for the moment when that job is finished so that they can finally do what they like. Mm. I get paid to do what I like. At the expense of my health. That's true. But still, it's awesome.
No, it's great. I understand that. It was the same thing for me when I used to love being a full-time software developer. Actually, I missed it. I miss coding full-time. Maybe not right now with all the change that is happening with AI and everything, but like I missed what I was doing when I started my career. But it was still a job, even if I liked it. But when I started being a developer advocate, I was like, oh my God, I'm being paid to do those kind of things. If I want to be honest, my role is not exactly as yours. So there is still a couple of things that I need to do that I maybe not enjoy that much doing that, but like a huge part of my job is like, I love doing that. And I often don't believe that I'm getting paid to do that. But with that said, Viktor, we could probably talk forever. And it's real fun talking with you because I think we have the same vision with a couple of things. And I love the fact that you're also super transparent about shit. But I think it's time.
If this show gets me fired,
yeah, I mean,
I'm getting after you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I need. Yeah, but I mean, okay. I don't want to add on it, but I was like, if everything you said was a surprise for people that work with you, they did not add proper attention to the situation. That thing should be really new.
That's my thing, and again, this is from a very privileged position, so I recognize that many people cannot do that. It's what you said before, I never bullshit. I will tell you exactly what I think, be it internal within a company, if you're a prospect and I think that this is just a horrible solution for you, I will tell you that. Caro, I'm surprised that anybody wants to hire me. I'm honestly surprised. I don't understand.
Hey, we're in the same boat. It's also why I usually tell people, please don't bring me on a sales call, because like, yeah, I mean, I know where I have my strength, and I know it may not what the company wants, but it's really beneficial in everything else I do. So anyway, what I was going to say is that we could probably talk forever, but I feel like we could move to the second part of the show, which is a technical demo. And I was pretty excited about yours because like it's a mix of like product I use, as I said in my previous live, with like a little bit of like AI flavor. So I'm giving you the mic, and please let us know what you're gonna talk about.
Okay, let me first start by saying that I spend a tremendous amount of time preparing for what I'm going to show. I wrote 7 bullet points and did not prepare a demo, so we're gonna wing it.
I love it.
That was, I don't know. Anyways, what I want to talk is not actually necessarily directly with Crossplane I work with. I want to talk about internal developer platforms, right? So, and I feel that it's important because we're finally getting to the point of recognizing and taking serious the idea that we should enable people in 2 things. First, to do effectively what is their core competency, but also be able to do everything else. What that means is that and that's where internal developer platforms come in, right? So that you're let's say front-end developer, your core competency is you develop front-end, you type your code, you do your stuff, and then you don't want to hand over things to others, but you go somewhere to some kind of platform and you say, deploy my application, see what's going on, and so on and so forth. So everybody's building right now internal developer platforms. And that brings me to, okay, so what is it, right? And this is the part where people, when they start building platforms, they start fantasizing, okay, we should do it like this, we should do it like that. All platforms that are worth using have the same architecture, same capabilities. And that's that we have services. That's what does something, right? Database is a service, application is a service, this is a service, whatever it is. There is a service, there is a process running somewhere that does something. There is an API always that allows you to communicate with that service. There are policies that allow you to define what cannot be done, and there are some user interfaces for people who like pretty colors, like Web UI, or people who like IDEs, or people who like CLIs, right? There are many different interfaces with which you can communicate with that platform. And that's exactly how every platform you want to use and you're using that is public is built, like AWS. Services, EC2, cool. How do we talk to those services? Through API, AWS API, cool. What is the interface, how we talk? I don't know, AWS CLI, console, Terraform, whatever, right? They're all the same, right? And now we're trying to build that internally so that we can enable people to do stuff, because those public platforms are made with the idea that everybody should be able to, it should be something to everybody, not something specific to what you need, right? So now, if you're building platforms, right, the only place that makes sense, and this is the hill I'm going to die on, is to use Kubernetes, right? Because simply it's the most acceptable, most common, what's or not building block for platforms there, right? And you have everything you need. Services, those are controllers in Kubernetes. It's designed to do that. APIs, how do you talk to that? That's custom resource definitions, right? User interfaces, anything, I don't care, right? Policies also baked into it with validating admission policies or Kubernetes notifications, Kubernetes events. It's all there. You just need to assemble the pieces, right? Yeah. And that's why I fell in love with Crossplane. And that's long before I joined Upbound, just to be 100% clear and transparent. I joined Upbound because Crossplane is one of the projects I really admire. And that's what it does. It extends Kubernetes to be a control plane, to be a place from where you manage your services, right? It creates controllers for you. It's very easy. It creates custom APIs. That's very easy. I can show you a few examples that I have on the slides here. Let me see, right? If you show you compositions, I have here, backend application as a service, frontend application, PostgreSQL, in AWS or Azure or Google, right? Those are all the custom services I made, and they're kind of, if a developer wants PostgreSQL in AWS, this is how they do it, right? And behind the scenes, there is this one, actually, SQLs. That's not behind the scenes. That's what users will see. Let me show you, actually. Here's an example, right? You want the database as a developer, and we talked, and kind of like I was a product manager, and I said, okay, so what do you care about? What you don't care about? And so on and so forth. Now imagine a situation in which developers say, I just want to deploy PostgreSQL. I want to define how big it is, and I want to say where it is. Cool. And you define this, right? Size, small. What is small in AWS? I don't know. It's something. That's your problem, not my problem. And I want to run it in AWS, PostgreSQL. Cool, right? That's me defining everything behind the scenes, and now developers saying, this is all you need to know to run production-ready, very serious database, right? But done in a way that conforms to everything that my company needs. So let me apply that. I'm going to apply to the cluster. Now I'm using here kubectl. You would use Argo CD, or you would use Backstage, or you would use whatever you're using. I don't care, right? That's kind of, those are the interfaces to the platform. It can be any, right? And you can see that my database now is running in somewhere in my cluster. Now, that's from the platform perspective. I want the database, I got the database. The complexity behind it is something very different, right? If you look at this 10 lines or whatever, generated this, right? We got Internet Gateway, main route table association. Nobody knows what main route table association is, but we got it. There is a route table associations, route table, security group rules, security group subnets, VPC, and so on and so forth, right? So that's me as a platform engineer defining what the database is with all the complexity, and then providing it as a service to the developer, and with a simple interface. And that's essentially what Crossplane does. Now, that was the story what Crossplane does for a developer, and I have not much time, so I'll try to go fast. And you ask me a question, I'll finish in a second, right? And then we have the story of AI that we are all kind of entering right now, and AI will be soon doing stuff for you, right? And for AI to do stuff for you effectively, it needs to know how your company operates, what it does. It needs to have more than the public knowledge, and that's where
In some context.
Kubernetes API comes in, right? And you can do something like, let me see if I have an example. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. Let's see. What's the password? My secret token. There we go. Sorry, I'm opening it on another screen just not to show you a password. There we go, right? Show me, too bad. I did not set it up correctly. Sorry for that. Anyways,
No worries.
if you point now to that platform AI, agents, cursor, cloud code, whatever, it will not do random stuff that normally AI would do, but it will do what is allowed to do through that platform. And what is allowed to do is what you designed that it should do, just as you did for people, as you did for now for AI, right? And it will all of a sudden, if you have a well-defined platform, in this case with Crossplane, it will have all those guardrails that people complain about when they say, hey, this is awesome, but it just messed it up, right? It messed it up. The reason why it messed it up is because you let it loose among children, kind of like you gave it access to AWS, you gave it access to Azure, whatever you're using, right? Instead, you give it access to your platform. A platform is already designed to do things exactly as your company should be doing, and then you live happily ever after. I tried to be as fast as possible. That's my presentation, man. I prepared it very well, you see?
I know. Thanks for doing that. No, I think it's great for folks that do not know Crossplane to understand a little more like what's happening behind the scene. And it's open source. People can go use it, and you don't need to like fire up an AWS cluster. You use like something locally, and you create a Kubernetes on your machine and you try it and you see how it goes, and you can have fun with it. So, yeah.
Fun and suffering, they are always together.
I mean,
You always suffer with Kubernetes.
this is what I always said. Kubernetes can be a fantastic tool, but it's a pain in the ass when you start using it. At some point, when you develop some kind of expertise, you understand a little bit better, it's quote unquote easier, but like it's a complex beast. It's a complex beast. People that say that, and you may disagree with me, but like people that say like, oh no, Kubernetes is easy, and I'm like, bullshit. It's not.
Okay, so here's my explanation, and that's that the first half is going to shock you. Kubernetes is by far the easiest way in the world to do certain things. The question is whether you need those things.
Oh, right.
Right? Kind of, if you say, hey, auto reconciliation, auto scaling, auto this, loop detection, blah, 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 the things that Kubernetes does, I dare anybody to find me an easier way to do those things. I dare you to find me. Now, where it becomes complex is when you are thrown into it without needing it.
Yeah.
Or needing only parts of it. Right? And then we have problems. Like, for example, automatically moving stuff from one place to another to satisfy certain conditions and criteria and stuff like that. Absolutely awesome. Can you do it in an easier way? No. Do you need it? Maybe not.
Maybe not. Yeah.
Right? I don't think it's complicated. It's just that for many people, that complexity is just not something they need.
Yeah, no, I get your point of view, and I presume that we were kind of like saying the same thing, but mine was not as articulate as like you did. I mean, when I was working at DigitalOcean, Kubernetes was starting to be a more popular thing, and one of my focus were startups people, and I was doing a lot of like coffee chat and like one-on-one with startup founders, CTO, and all they wanted was help with Kubernetes. And I was like, and sorry, DigitalOcean, but like most of the time what I was telling those folks is like, you don't need it right now. Like most of them didn't have a product. They barely had an MVP. I'm like, try to think like how you're going to architecture your application so it's easier the day your problem is what Kubernetes solve. It's going to be easier for you to move to the platform, to that ecosystem. But right now, you're just like trying with the latest, coolest tools just for the sake of it, and you don't need it. Where you could focus your time on like building a great product. Like if your problem is scalability and availability and like all those things that like Kubernetes help you to solve, if you don't need that right now, like just don't go there.
It's even worse. I meet a lot of people complaining about Kubernetes, newbies, kind of like, okay, I just started maybe a month ago to kind of like, I cannot wrap my head around it. It's kind of, okay, so what did you do? Okay, so I created a Kubernetes cluster by myself or a service somewhere. I installed the service mesh. I set up observability. I did a lot, I put everything I ever heard about into it. And kind of, this is not for me. Kind of, yeah, of course it's not. Kind of like, of course it's not. Kind of, why did you do that? Yeah. There is some inherent, and I feel this is a big problem in us software engineers in a way. There is that inherent desire to overcomplicate things. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we need to do it. But most of the time, I remember when I was working with one of the companies, that was a long time ago, and kind of, and I entered in conflict with them because they wanted Elasticsearch. Kind of cool. No, they wanted capabilities of Elasticsearch. I said at that time, let's do Elasticsearch. Cool. And I showed them the design, kind of, okay, so we're going to have Elasticsearch here. They said, oh no, but it needs to have 5 shards, 5 replicas, 7 this. Kind of, no. Yeah, but what if 3 years from now? Yeah, what if 3 years from now? what if we mess it up today so that it doesn't work today?
So maybe
Because we
in 3
might
years.
have different needs 3 years from now. And what will you need 3 years from now? Do you know? If you do, you're a freaking you're either delusional or liar. Kind of like you choose which word best describes you. Delusion, lying. Choose. Kind of like, you have no idea. Just go with easy. Kind of like go with what meets your needs today.
Yeah.
That's it. It's as easy as that. And that's one of the reasons why I've been for most of my career, I've been attracted to startups. Right? Because we don't have luxuries to stop and think. Kind of like, okay, so should we do this in this way? Because what if our user base jumps from 10,000 to 100 trillion users over the next 5 years? Kind of like, we don't have time for that. Kind of like, we're going to lose those that we have right now if I don't click this button. If I don't click this button in the next 10 seconds, kind of like we're in bad place. That's the startup type of life, right? But then when you work in those enterprises, it's always kind of, like big banks and stuff like it's kind of like, let's spend 7 years thinking about what will happen 7 years after those 7 years.
Yeah, no, doesn't make sense. Unfortunately, it's a lot like that. But I think the last word on that is like if you really need Kubernetes, go for it. That's going to be helpful, but most of the time you may not need it, depending on where you are. And think about now. Don't think about 3 years from now, because as I often said, like if in 3 years your problem is what you think they were, fine. Like improve, change, upgrade, move to a platform, start to use Kubernetes, but that's going to be a now problem. It's just a potential maybe future problem that, as you said, you don't even know if it's going to happen.
Ideal situation in my head, and this is where kind of experience comes in. Can you think and plan for what you need today while still in the back of your head have notion of what you might need tomorrow, but not plan in details, but kind of like, okay, so let's just go with easy. Let's fix our needs today, but we have those 3 options. Let's pick this one because kind of like this is equally good as others, but down the road this might be better, right? But that's not a deep planning. That's just experience in a way, right?
Yeah, I agree. So Viktor, I think that brings us to the end of the show. That was a pleasure, as always, talking with you, and thanks for being a guest on the show. Any last word of wisdom you want to share?
So is it kind of like, can you share wisdom for a change instead of blabbing around? Is that what you just...
I mean, this is what I implied, but I wanted to stay polite, so...
Just do what makes sense. That's the wisdom, right? Kind of like don't overthinking. Over time you get experience that, but just do what makes sense. That's all.
I agree.
Then don't dismiss things because you're not used to them, right? I see a lot of people. I feel that very often I enjoy and I'm more productive with less experienced people than very experienced people. Because the one advice, you build some reputation, you build career by becoming an expert in something, and then you reject everything else. Mm-hmm. And that's very dangerous, right? And that happens every few years. You have a new wave and kind of, oh no, DB2 will be forever, man. DB2, like that's forever. No. This Postgres, absolutely not. NoSQL, absolutely not. Vector databases, absolutely not. DB2 forever, kind of. Just don't be that person.
Yeah, no, I agree, and also agree with. It's not always the case, but it's true that like usually the more experience you have, the more strong opinions you have about things, and it's a little bit harder to change them than someone who is new to the field. And it's just like, I want to learn everything and I want to know everything and I'm open and I want to try everything. So, and I know because I'm the first one who is I try to have an open mind. If I want to be honest, it's not always the case. I also have strong opinion, and there's things that I'm just like, no, this is how I do things. This is how I will continue to do things. But yeah, no, great advice, great advice. So thanks again for being on the show. It was a pleasure. I don't do that many cloud native events anymore because my focus changed, but hopefully we're going to have the chance to meet at events around the world at some point. And yeah, thanks everybody for watching live, and thanks for everybody who's going to watch the recording, and see you in probably 2 weeks if I don't have a trip for the next episode of the DevRel Show. Bye, everyone.
Very nice.